Hey, what's up? It's Autumn, and this is just a thought. Hey, what's up? Welcome back. Hope you guys are having an amazing week or had an amazing week, I should say. It's the weekend. Thank the Lord for that. I'm going to apologize already, just immediately early from my voice. Clearly, I'm doing too much talking, uh, but I'm going to keep doing it. So there's that. I feel like this is me having to power through another one of these teachings because last week, when I was trying to talk about why God created humanity, the first episode in this series, I was having all kind of technical issues. And then now I'm getting ready to talk about why God created men, and now my voice is going out. See, this, um, I don't know what this is, but we gonna keep pushing. I don't even want to think about what is gonna happen next week when I talk about why women were created. And dear God, when we get to the fall and why we dealing with all the things that we dealing with in present day because of the fall, Lord have mercy. Um, I may actually uh, revive it a little bit and incorporate pieces of the fall into, like, when I talk about Adam today, and men just talk about the what happened with Adam and what happened with men during the fall. And then the same thing when I talk about Eve and women, talk about the fall and what happened with them. I may do that. Let me see how I feel. We'll see how it goes. It could go one way or the other. But um, so I guess we all gonna be surprised to see where we land at the end of this. So, just as a little recap from the first one, when I talked about why God made humanity, God is love, right? And love exists when there's reciprocity, when there's an ability to love and to be loved, right? That is love. And so uh, God created mankind, humanity, for relationship with him and relationship between each other, person to person. We are built for relationships. They're extremely powerful. I spoke about how we are made in God's image and how that means that we as humans, we have certain traits and characteristics that are very similar to God. God has creative ability. We are very creative beings. God is a God of justice. We have just an innate, right, sense of justice or fairness in us that we don't really have to explain. God is a God of love. He has the capacity and the ability. He is love. We have the ability to love and to be and to receive love. And so all of these things are global characteristics that he has put into humanity, into men and women alike. Then you started getting more specific into males and females, right? And dividing that out and the pieces of God that are a little more heavily prevalent in one versus another based on what role or responsibilities that were very specifically placed on that male or on that female. And so depending on your job function, you need certain skill sets, certain traits, certain mindsets, certain abilities, certain makeup in order to execute your assignment and execute it well. And so we're going to first talk about what roles or I say roles, what assignment. I like that better than roles because when people hear roles, they tend to get that mixed up with like what people are actually doing every day. Like there's nowhere in the Bible that says that women have to cook. That that's not anywhere in the Bible, right? So but that would be a role. Um but there are general assignments or responsibilities that have been placed on men or that have been placed on women. And so I want to talk about it more from an assignment, because an assignment can show up looking like a lot of different things. And so we get real focused on what we can see versus the why behind it. If I am here to raise and nurture my children, that can look like a lot of different things. It doesn't have to look one specific way. So as long as I'm accomplishing that assignment with these children in the way that these children need to, in the environment, with resources that I have and all those different things, then I am fulfilling my assignment. It doesn't have to look like this cookie cutter, like it must be these six things. So again, I want to get away from that word role and more of saying God has placed assignments. Okay. So anyway, that's a little bit of a recap of the first one. Please go back and watch it because it they're each going to tie into the other one. This you could absolutely watch standalone, but I think it just gives more context if you hear humanity first, and then let's break off into very specifically males. So the creation of man, the creation of a male. Genesis 2:7. The Lord God formed the man from the dust of the ground. He breathed the breath of life into the man's nostrils, and the man became a living person. Okay. So here's a couple of things. The Bible talks about prior to when we're looking at the creation of the earth and how God made trees and he made land and water and the sky and right and all these, he made the environment. Let's just say that. He made the earth and the environment, everything that's sort of in it. And the Bible very specifically talks about there was no one to cultivate it. Okay. There was no one to reign over it, to watch over it, to take care of it, to tend it. Um, mm. and so um it's like, okay, well, now there's all this land and this vegetation and all these things that are here, and nothing there to make sure that it is being prepared, grown, harvested, watched over, all those things. And so the fact that we first see, okay, there's no one here to cultivate the land, and then we see, boom, the creation of a male. And then God is talking to Adam, and now we understand, okay, he's given this assignment to Adam. Eve's not even here yet. Eve's not hasn't even been brought up in the Bible yet. Like we haven't talked about Eve yet. She's not here. This is God talking to Adam. Just God and man, God and male talking to each other. Okay? So Adam is given the responsibility to cultivate. And so I'm huge on like definitions and things like that. If you saw how to read the Bible, I talk about getting resources. So anywho, looking up the word cultivate, the definition is try to acquire or develop, foster the growth of, refine, create a culture, to seek the society of, further or encourage. It means to prepare, to grow, to produce, to harvest, propagate, or create. Okay. So that desire, that ability, that assignment to cultivate is in men. This is something that men want to do. This is something that they were created to do. This is something that they were equipped to do. There are pieces of God that are very specifically put in them to want to do this. You see a lot of men, and I'm not, look, because it's always going to be at least one person that's like, I like to do this too. Women like to do this too. I am I'm not saying that women don't like to do this, okay? I'm not saying that women don't cultivate things. What I'm saying is this is the responsibility that was placed in men, and you see different traits that really lean heavily into their desire and their ability to do that, whether it's mentally, whether it's physically. You see that a lot. Whether it's their natural sort of tendencies, you see that. Okay. So when I think about cultivating things, just like actually outside cultivating the earth, right? That's a very physical thing. You look at a male's physique. Men have more muscle mass. Men have denser bone structure. Men are, um, taller, more physical. They have hormones that lead them to being more aggressive, more adventurous, things like that. All of those things lead towards being outside, growing something, cultivating it, nurturing it, creating it, producing something, the design, like working with your hands, being very logical in your approach, very analytical in your approach, problem solving, right? Looking at this and saying, okay, wait a minute. So I'm trying to get this. If I do this and then I do that, then this is going to produce this. So that's what I need to do in order to fix this. All of that leads back to cultivating. Here's the thing. When you've been given an assignment and you've been given a gift and a purpose, those traits don't just show up in one area. So again, if you look back at talking about like how to how to read the Bible and the context, well, this is a very agricultural society, right? Adam was not in the industrial age. He was not in the digital age. He is in agriculture. And so his cultivating is very specific to cultivating the earth, but that desire is still exists in men, period, regardless of what age they're in. Terrible phrase, but also this term of like mansplaining that comes is like, oh, men always want to try to tell you what to do. Like, okay, I get it. I know. I understand. That's cultivating. The desire for him to want to walk you through a thought process or be like, okay, why don't you just do this? Or like, why don't you just do that? When you, ladies, we have men in our lives that we want to just vent to them about things that are going on. We go to them and they want to solve it. They might be like, why don't you just do this? Or how about we just try that? Or why don't you just talk to her? Or just tell this? Or just stay away? Or just do this? And you're like, I didn't want you to solve this for me. I just wanted all of that. That's a part of tending and cultivating. That's where that comes from. Okay. So we're going to get to where this all leads to overall, but these are the pieces. So the earth needed somebody to cultivate. God said, I know, let me create a man, a male, and let me put in him the desire to cultivate and the ability, okay, to want to do it. Okay. Then there's also the desire or the responsibility or the assignment to tend to, okay? And what does it mean to tend? And this again goes to the problem solving piece. To deal with problems or needs of a person or thing. That's what to tend means. What I just said. Now, do you see where this is coming from? Do you also see that these are things that God does? God tends to us. That's a part of his character. That's a part of what God is in our life. God also cultivates us. He develops us. He works in us to produce good things. He's constantly pruning us, taking us to the next level, growing us. He's watching over our environment and making sure that things are okay and that everything is primed and ready for us to be the best version of ourselves. Cultivating an environment where we can shine, where we can achieve, where we can feel safe, where we can feel connected, where we can walk in our purpose. These are all things that God does. This is a part of his personality that he has very specifically put into men, into males. So to tend, to apply oneself to serve, pay attention to, foster, caretake, oversee, manage the operations of, supervise, to stand by in readiness to prevent mischance. Okay. We're talking about protection, which is something that we look to men for, is covering and protection. That's what this is. To tend is to cover, to watch out for, to pay attention, to oversee. You said to supervise. That's leadership. Looking for you to lead, to be out here and be like, hey, what's going on? This is what we're doing. This is what we're not doing. That's to tend to make sure that this environment stays the way that we need it to in order for the things that we are cultivating to grow. See how this picture is coming together? I hope this is making sense. Okay. All right. God also gave the responsibility to watch over. Again, this is something that God does. This is something that he poured into males very specifically. What does it mean to watch over? It means to head, to steer, call the shots, order, run, quarterback, monitor, preside over, govern, shepherd. Okay? Rule, reign, look after, and make decisions about, be in charge of. Now, Lord have mercy. I know this is very difficult. And I feel like I can sense that there will probably be women who will feel some type of way about me talking about this, as though I'm trying to say that women cannot operate in spaces of leadership and things like that. Listen, I'm not saying that at all. I am operating in spaces of leadership all the time. God gave the responsibility of reigning over the earth in general to men and women. We are supposed to reign as a team. So each person, it's like, let's look at a business. A business may have a president or CEO and a board of advisors or a board of directors. Both of those are two separate entities, and they both have their own role and their responsibilities. But together, they are both running that company. So the two of them together are reigning over the company. The two of them together are overseeing what is happening with that organization. But those two entities have very different roles within that umbrella of ruling or reigning over that company. It's the same thing as that with men and women. The issue becomes is when the president is trying to be the board of directors or overstep the board of directors or eliminate the board of directors, operate outside of, away from, apart from the board of directors, or in direct opposition of, okay? Or the board of directors is going rogue and they trying to do their own thing or operate outside of the president, CEO, or operate contrary or with different values or different policies or structures or boundaries. That becomes the issue, is when people are out of alignment. Now we got chaos. So just because I'm very specifically talking about these things where it comes to men does not mean that I'm saying that women don't have a role in leadership on the earth. What I'm saying is the part that women play in that leadership should look different than the part that men play in leadership. Men should lead in cultivating. They should lead in that area because that was specifically given to them as an assignment. They should own it. If this is a project, if our family, if society is a project or a company, there should be a piece that I own. This is in my job description. This is what I'm supposed to do. Doesn't mean that what anybody else is doing is not important or necessary. It means that when we're each doing our part, then everything works beautifully. And no one can say to anybody else that your part is better or worse than mine, or, you're necessary or I'm not. Everybody necessary. Everybody got to do their thing so that we all get what we need. The problem is when we have assessed that what somebody else is doing is what I want to be doing. No, I don't want to be doing what I was hired to do. I don't want to be doing what I was created to do. I don't want this job. I want your job. That becomes the problem. Because if everybody is fighting and clamoring for one position, that means we got a whole lot of vacancies, a whole lot of gaps that are not being fulfilled. When I get to next week about women's roles, which I probably should have started with women, quite honestly, but it was out of chronological order, but that's okay. But when I get to the part about women's roles, you will see how powerful women actually are. You'll see how women were created so beautifully, so intentionally, so magically, so powerful that if women were operating, if they embraced that, right? If we as women embrace that, man, game changing. Do you hear me? Game changing for everybody, for us, for men, for our children, for society, all the things. Game changing. The problem is that we've been tricked into believing that the reasons that we were created and the gifts that we were created with, that they're weak or somehow unnecessary or something to reject or look down on or that aren't as important or as valuable. And that's the trick of the enemy. That's the lies. But I have digressed. I've gotten off on a tangent and a whole soapbox, and we're going to not do that. But I need y'all to stick with me because I don't want to, at every step and every turn, feel like I got to stop and quantify and be like, and tiptoe around this. It is what it is. Whether we like it or whether we don't, this was God's plan. This is how he did it. It's perfect in its nature, and there is purpose in it. And when we rock with it, it makes everything better. Okay. All right. So, um, okay, back to this. So, when you look at this, what it means to watch over, and Adam is created, and again, he the only one that exists right now. And this is what the assignment that God has called him to. This is straight up leadership. Straight up. I'm not really sure how you can hear the definition and the list of things that I just talked about and not hear leadership all in there. Quarterback. Okay. We know quarterback is calling plays. He like, you gonna do this, you're doing this, this is what we doing, this is how we moving. And then everybody is pushing. That's leadership. The quarterback is the leader of the team. In a company, the president is leading that company. Now here's the deal. Watching over, being that leader, being the quarterback, being the person that has to govern and steward, that person has an extreme amount of responsibility. Like, bro, we look at it, we be like, oh, I want to be able to call the shots. Cool. All right. But do you want the responsibility that goes along with calling the shots? Because I'm going to get to the part where God looks at Adam first when stuff went wrong. God didn't say, talk to Eve first after they ate the fruit. No, 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 no. He talked to Adam first because that's what leadership brings you. The need for you to be accountable and responsible for what's going on here. Adam was created to be ridiculously in charge. That's what Adam was created to be, because Adam was created to be foundational. God does everything decently and in order. He not creating the birds with no sky to put them in. He not creating fish with no water for them to be in. He creates the water first, then I put the fish in it. God does everything decently and in order. And so then if we know that about God, and he is the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow, God is not a God of chaos or of confusion. If we know that about him, then we know that if he created the male first, Adam first, he did that for a reason. When we build a house, we don't bring the roof out first. We don't bring the walls out and the windows out. How? Where are we going to put it? We start with digging and laying the foundation. This is what everything else is going to be built up on. And I got to make sure this thing is strong and right and leveled, that this thing is set and solid and steady. We look at this, and there's a lot of information that we see in Genesis where it's just God and Adam. The creation of the animals, naming the animals, talking about we cultivating the land, the assignment, God giving Adam the warning. Now listen, I don't know how long the time period was with this, right? It could have been a day, it could have been 6 years, whatever. I don't know. But what I do know is that the Bible is very intentional about all this time that Adam and God spent, just the two of them, before Eve ever got there. I don't know if it took God 1 day to form the animals, or if it took God 20 days to form the animal, or it's 20 years. There was a time that was spent just Adam and God before Eve was ever created. Why? Because Adam is foundational to families, to society, to relationships. Everything is built on him. So I think that comes with an incredible amount of responsibility. There is a need for Adam to know who he is. There is a need for Adam to walk in his purpose. There's a need. We listen. God gave, and I'm getting ready to walk into that in a second. But God gave Adam creative naming ability. He brought all the animals in front of him and said, "Whatever you name this is what it will be." That's creative naming ability. That's teaching him something. That's a part of his assignment. Whatever you call this is what it is. Adam called her, that's bone of my bone, flesh of my flesh. That became his wife. He named her. He gave identity. It's Adam's responsibility to do that. God had him practice on a lot of other things before he went into the game with Eve. Before Eve ever came, Adam was learning how to use his creative naming authority with all the animals. That's practice. Before Eve came along and they started having kids and all that, Adam was learning to cultivate in the garden. He spent a lot of time with God. God was speaking directly to him. Listen, you can have all this. All this is cool. All this is cool, but you can't have that. Okay. God talking to me, I hear him. Adam is learning God's voice. God was setting boundaries for Adam, teaching Adam how to receive boundaries and to walk within boundaries. All of that before Eve got there, because Adam is foundational. Everything is built off of him. When Adam don't know how to set boundaries and maintain them and make sure other people are adhering to them, chaos ensues. We know that. Spoiler alert, the fall happens. The serpent creeps in, we eat fruit. It's a whole downward spiral from there. Okay. Right? We see today, we got a whole lot of Adams running around calling things that ain't great, and they are behaving not great. But that's what he called it. So that's what it is. There's a lot of responsibility that comes with that. There's a lot of accountability that comes with that. So while we as women are very much out here being like, I should be able to do that. I want to be able to do that. But do you want everything that goes with it? Do you want that too? Me personally, I'm straight. I'm cool. Thank you, Lord. No thanks. It's going to be a no for me, dog. I don't want it. Mm-mm. And any woman who has had to, by by virtue of just lifing and the way that things have turned out, and so you have had no choice but to be both the male and the female. Anyone who has walked in that space where they have had to carry the entire load, no, it is tiring. It's tiring. It's fun and cute for 2 minutes, and then I'm like, bro, I want to sit down. Thank you, but no thank you. I want to sit down, please. Somebody else. You want to turn? I'm cool with that. You batter up, my friend. Have at it. You ain't got to fight me for this. I'm tired. But that's because as a woman, I was made for other things. And anytime you are doing things that you were not created and purposed for, they become a burden because you don't have grace for it. You don't have the skill set for it. You don't have the leaning for it. Like God didn't give you the grace for it. And now you tired and you frustrated and it feels like the burden that it is because it wasn't yours to carry. When you rocking in your own lane and your own stuff, you moving with speed because you like, boom, oh, I was made for this. I'm cool. I got the ability, the know-how, the skill set, the time, the effort, the energy, the perspective, all the things, the desire, the passion, the hormones, the physicality. This is much easier for me to do. So it's not as hard. But when you walk in spaces that weren't for you, it becomes hard. It's not fun. You get tired. Mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, you're tired. Again, another tangent, but relevant. Absolutely relevant. Okay. So these are the things that God is creating Adam foundationally for. Then God gives Adam boundaries. Okay. So I talk about that when he talks about eating of the fruit. Now, here's the deal. Um, I talked about this again in humanity, and I'm just going to revisit it for a second because the point is that the conversation happened with Adam first. Okay. This idea of free will, introducing free will through boundaries and saying, hey, listen, you can eat all this. All of this out here is have at it. Okay. But don't eat that. And the need and the necessity to have something that you can't eat is not used or is intended to be as a means of temptation. That's not, nobody's setting you up for failure. Okay. It's the reality of if I don't have the ability to, let's just say, let's just look at good and bad. Just, or up or down or in or out or whatever, right? If I don't have the ability to not be this, then does it mean that I'm really this? Can I say that I am generous if I've never had the ability to not be generous? I just am. But when it's presented in front of me, like, hey, you can keep this all to yourself or you can share it with someone who doesn't have any. Now there's an ability for me to choose and say, oh, okay, let me share it with you. Now I'm generous because I'm truly generous because I have the ability to not be generous and I chose to be it. So the idea of free will implies that you have to be able to have some level of choice to do something or not do something. And so their first sort of level of choice here was, I put this tree here. You you have free will. I'm telling you not to eat it, but it's there. I mean, technically you can choose to eat it, but I'm telling you not to. A part of what is going into that, whether Adam realizes it or not, but we as critical thinking human beings, we got to be able to look back on this and see that it's also like develop, like, do I trust God? Because he didn't just say eat it or don't eat it. He gave him the consequence. Like he told him, like, listen, if you eat this, you're gonna die. So now it's not just whether or not I'm choosing to do this, but it's like, do I believe you? Do I believe what you're saying to me? Do I believe that you have my best interest at heart? And so, which all again is tying back sort of into love. Am I going to choose to listen and obey you and be in relationship with you and have faith in you and in your word and what you're saying when I could choose not to do that? And that's the free will part. So moving on to creative naming ability. So, or authority. So in Genesis 2:19 through 20, So the Lord God formed from the ground all the wild animals and all the birds of the sky. He brought them to the man to see what he would call them. And the man chose a name for each one. He gave names to all the livestock, all the birds of the sky, and all the wild animals. But still, there was no helper just right for him. So I also find it interesting because right before this happens, the verse right before talks about God forming the animals. God says to himself, it's not good for man to be alone. So God's sort of talking to himself. Adam, he got a job, right? Adam got some boundaries. Adam, Adam, his relationship with God is intact. Adam is out here ruling and reigning and cultivating things. You know what I'm saying? Adam is out here being amazing. He's being foundational and amazing. Um, he physically look good. He out here, tilling the land. Like, I'm just saying, okay, I'm making all that up, but you know what I'm saying. Okay. Anyway, he doing all the things he was created to do. And God's like, amazing, amazing. Okay. But it's not good that he's by himself. So that's a couple of things. It's not good that Adam as a human is by himself. Mainly because by himself, he can't fulfill his assignment. The fullness of his assignment, because he's also given the assignment to fill the earth, to be fruitful and to multiply. He's also been given that assignment, and he can't do that by himself. So God's saying, hey, listen, it's not good that he be alone. Well, yeah, because he can't fulfill his purpose by himself. So he needs a woman to be able to fulfill the assignment that's been placed on his life. So that's part of it. Okay. Um, the other part of it is, and this is what I'm gonna get into, and this Gary get deep, but I'm gonna give y'all a little preview because okay. When we talk about women, we talk about um what women are the traits of God that are put into women. And part of them very much are things that society just needs. You can't have all logic and not have emotion. You need both. That's the beautiful balance. When you have some logic and when you have some emotion, you have a very balanced view of the world, of people, of circumstances, of God, of all the things. And so she brings those things to not only his life, but just humanity. So Adam needed her perspective. He needed those pieces of God that are in her that are not in him. He needed those in order for him to be the best version of himself and for him to fulfill his assignment. Society as a whole needed that balance. But we're going to get even deeper. And here we go. God knows all things from the beginning to the end and everything in between at all times. Okay. God knew the fall was going to happen. That was not a surprise to him. He knew they was going to eat that fruit. He knew it. He knew that the fall was going to happen. And he knew the opposition that humanity was going to face. He knew how the enemy was going to come at man's neck. And when I say man, I mean in all aspects of the word. Man is in male, man is in humans, man is in women, right? Like all the things. He knew, old, young, and in between. So he created Eve with very specific traits that we're going to get into next week. I don't want to spoil alert. But those traits that are in her don't make sense for a beautiful garden. They do make sense for a battlefield. So because God knew the fall was going to happen before the fall happened, he equipped and he prepared both of them. But he equipped and he prepared Eve. He created Eve knowing she gonna need some stuff for later. It ain't gonna make sense now, but it will make sense later. So, but we will talk about that when we get to Eve. Okay. So God says it's not good for man to be alone. And that was a really loaded statement. And so you would think that the very next verse would be, well, now he about to make Eve, but it wasn't. The very next verse was, and I'm making the animals and I'm going to parade them in front of Adam, and then he's going to name them. Again, he's practicing. He's getting Adam ready for his duties and his responsibility and his assignment. He's getting him in the habit of walking in his creative authority and calling things what they are. And Adam immediately does it. The minute he sees Eve, he identifies her. He gives her a name. Bone. That's bone of my bone. That's flesh of my flesh. Adam immediately does exactly what he's been practicing to do. And so here we go. Let me read that verse. So for y'all that are like, y'all ain't doing that. I believe in my heart y'all not doing that. But I'm going to give you the verse anyway, just in case you are. All right, Genesis 2:22. Then the Lord God made a woman from the rib, and he brought her to the man. At last, this dude was hyped. The man exclaimed, this one is bone from my bone and flesh from my flesh. She will be called woman because she was taken from the man. And so he just carried into exactly what he had just been practicing doing. And then the next verse after that is the one that talks about, and it's because of this, a man shall leave his mother and father and cleave to his wife, and they became one, and all the things. So, I think, oh, we out here. I got time. Okay. So I'm gonna go ahead and go into, the fall a little bit. So now you look at Genesis 2:25 says, now the man and his wife were both naked, but they felt no shame. So this is the first time the word shame is introduced into the Bible at all. Okay. And it's introduced in a way that we obviously know and understand, like very quickly, um, before shame and after shame. Okay. So this was the state where no shame existed. There's also this idea of the law of first mention when you're studying the Bible. I didn't cover this in How to Read the Bible, but I'm going to cover it now. So the law of first mention is this idea that the first time in the Bible a concept or an idea that is introduced about God and how he has created or designed something, right? That is the perfect like intent, design, or mind of God. So we see Adam created where he's cultivating, he's got creative authority, he's using all the things properly, he's got relationship with God, he's talking to him directly, he's spending a lot of time with him, he knows his identity, he recognizes Eve for what she is, right? Like this man is operating on 10. That's God's perfect plan. When things are firing on all cylinders, this is how men function. And they function like this in relationship with their wife with no shame. So now we see the introduction of marriage. I'm going to talk about Eve next time. But when you see Eve, that's the perfect version of a woman, of Eve, right? But prior to the fall. So now we have this perfect creation of them where they're operating exactly the way that God designed and purposed them to, in relationship with each other, in relationship to God, in relationship to the earth, in covenant and communion with each other, in marriage. And so now we see like, oh man, okay, when everything is great, when everything is right, this is how it looks. Then the fall happens and we start getting all kinds of versions of that. We get men who are doing part of this, some of this, none of this, all of this, a piece of this. We get women who are doing some of this, all of this, none of it's a piece of this. We get them operating in relationship together in a way that's like sort of great, sort of not great. They ain't doing none of that. Oops, that looks crazy, right? So we're all over the place with all these combinations of things, creating all combinations of pictures that don't align with God's original plan, intent, design, blueprint, purpose, execution, manifestation, look like? So, the perfect, mm, like, ideal, you know, that God created is Adam looked like this, Eve looked like this, and they were in this marriage, and there was no shame. They were naked and they had no shame. So, what does that imply, right? Were they physically naked? Yes, they were physically naked, but that also implies that there was no judgment. So we know that Adam and Eve were not perfect. We know that because they are made in the image of God, but they are not God. So they're not perfect. And they obviously had the ability to make mistakes. We're about to find out how they do. They make one. Quite a few actually. Okay. Separately and together. So it's not that they didn't have an ability to make mistakes. That part, that was always true. The fact that God gave them a choice. And it's like you don't do that means that they have the ability to do it, which means they have the ability to make a mistake or do the wrong thing. Okay. Uh, the no shame or the vulnerability part comes from no judgment. So when they say we listen and don't judge, that's before the fall, they meant that. I listen and I don't judge. I ain't assigning nothing to it. It just is what it is. Okay. Oh yeah, you did that thing. Oh, okay. Well, okay, cool. That you did it, but all right. I'm not judging you. I'm not saying that you're a bad person because of it. I'm not saying that you're worthless because of it. There was no judgment. Okay. But once they had this knowledge of good and evil, now we start categorizing things. Now I'm starting looking at you and I'm like, man, you did that. And now I'm like, man, you something wrong with you. I don't like you. You're selfish. You're this, you're that. Your behavior, you're that you what you want. You that like now I start putting judgment, and that's where shame comes in. Because when somebody has the ability to look at you and to um, make a determination about your value or your worth based off of what they see you doing or not doing and how that aligns with how they think or don't think. You don't matter to me, or that was stupid, or that was dumb, or you're evil. That's where this idea of like fear and nakedness and wanting to hide and being like, oh my God, I don't want people to know or find out, or I don't want you to think I'm dumb, or I don't want you to think, right? So none of that existed prior to, but after their eyes were open, then now I have the ability to start making some determinations about how I feel about that. And that's where judgment comes in. Okay. So, quick recap of the fall. I'm going to spend more time on it with Eve because, I mean, she's the main character in that piece. But I think it's really interesting about what is happening with Adam, and we're going to talk about that with his part. So, as the serpent is talking to Eve and getting her to question what God said, getting her to question her identity, um, promising her, lies and, tempting her with knowledge and all these other different things, getting her to focus on things she doesn't have, versus her focusing on all the things she does have. While the serpent's doing all this, the Bible says that Adam was with her. Adam was there. He was there while all this was happening. Okay. So just for us to, as a reminder, I'm gonna go back to Adam's assignment on his life is to tend, to oversee, to manage the operations of, to supervise. His responsibility was to watch over, right? So to make decisions about, to be in charge of, to preside over, govern, shepherd, run quarterback, bring order, call the shots, steer, head. So this was his responsibility. He's supposed to be cultivating and fostering an environment, a culture, a society, a garden of safety, of order, of obedience and boundaries and love and faithfulness and all these different things. And he's standing there and he's not doing anything. So I think that we can all agree that he is for whatever reason, neglecting his responsibilities. The foundation is not foundationing. It's, I don't know what it's doing, but it's not that. Okay. So Eve does her thing and Adam goes along with it. And then immediately they like, "Ah, this ain't great." They sow leaves, they hide. And here comes God, right? No, then they unsewed the fig leaves and everything. Here comes God. They hear God coming and they immediately run and hide. And God speaks to Adam first. And he says to Adam, "Where are you?" And so the first question is really interesting that God asks Adam, "Where are you?" is not because God does not know where Adam is. God knows everything. Adam, he knows exactly where Adam is, and he knows why. He wants Adam to be, this is a question of self-reflection. So I think that here's the other piece about reading the Bible is that when God does anything, when Jesus does anything, they're teaching us something about God, about us, about people, life. There's a lesson, there's teaching here, but also there's like a method to the madness, like steps and ways to navigate. And so now they've done something that they were not supposed to do. They find themselves in a tough spot. And the first thing that God teaches us to do when we find ourselves in a tough spot is to self-reflect. Where are you right now? That's where he asks Adam. And Adam's response is very self-reflective. I was ashamed, and so I hid because I was afraid. So Adam is very honest and transparent in that moment. That is very self-reflective. And we should be self-reflective too, because then God can begin to deal with that. When we are able to see what is going on with us, not only where am I in my life right now, but where am I mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, like all of the things. Where am I? That should be one of the first questions we ask ourselves. So God asks Adam that. He tells him, "I feel shame in my vulnerability." That's that's not great. Okay. That's not great. Um, and so I hid. This is very telling. Why? Because this is the same thing that continues to happen. This is the same thing that is happening right now. When men find themselves, well, let me, before I do that, let me talk about this. Why? So Adam, now that he got an awareness, he understands the fullness of the fact that, man, I had a job to do. As a man, I had an assignment. This is what God created me for, what he put me for. He created me to be foundational. And I did not fulfill the assignment that was placed on my life. And because I did not fulfill my assignment, because I did not walk in my assignment, because I was not the man that I was created to be, we got chaos. Now we find ourselves in a not great situation. And now there's a feeling of shame associated with that. There's a feeling of shame that Adam is experiencing at not being the man that that God created him to be. There's a sense of shame that God knows it, that he knows it, that Eve knows it. That's where the hiding comes from. I'm hiding because I'm not who I thought I was. I'm hiding because I'm not who you need me to be. I'm hiding because I'm not what you created me to be. I'm hiding because I'm not who you want me to be. So I'm hiding behind these leaves, these trees, all of these manufactured things because I'm afraid that I'm not the man that I am supposed to be. And men today are still battling with this same cross. What was Adam's cross to bear is John of 2025's cross to bear. Men are still to this day battling that feeling of fear of being found out and shame of not showing up the way that they feel like they're supposed to, or somebody else is telling them they should, or somebody else is expecting them to. I'm not a man, but I can feel empathy for that level of, again, responsibility. So as a woman, and I look at that, I go, I don't, that's a lie. Men have been given an incredible amount of responsibility, and to be battling a feeling, right? To be being attacked. And this is where the enemy comes in, that the enemy is constantly attacking men in their masculinity. You're not man enough, right? You're not man enough for her. You're not man enough for these kids. You're not man enough for society. You're not man enough for this job. You're not man enough for God. You're not man enough for purpose. You're not man enough for this promotion. For the enemy to constantly be attacking you in this assignment that already, just in and of itself, on a good day, forget the attack, on a good day, has all of this pressure associated with it. But now to add this, all these doubts and this bombardment of lies and and everything that goes with that, that's wild. That's heavy. So listen, my hat's off to men who are out here thugging it out daily, trying to show up for their community, for their families, for their children, for their wives, for their sisters, their friends, for their co-workers. Hats off to you, because it ain't easy. It is not easy. And it is my belief that we as women, versus trying to compete with you to be more like you, or worse, beating you down and assisting the enemy in his assault against you, that we have a duty and a responsibility, and we would be far more fruitful, purposeful, and powerful if we got on board with uh, empowering you, protecting you, loving on you, speaking words of life into you, so that you can uh, win the battle that you are under, to be the best version of yourself. Because when you are the best version of yourself, when men are the best version of themselves, society is the best version of itself. Families are the best versions of itself. Marriage is the best version of itself. Children are the best version of itself. Like literally, when men win, everyone wins. Society wins. We all have a vested interest in men winning. When men win, they create an environment for women to win in. Women want to win. I want to win. I want an environment that I can win in. I don't want to have to be in an environment where I got to battle the environment and everything that's going on inside of me too. I would love to walk into a beautiful garden that I can flourish and bloom in. So if that's what supporting you is going to create for me, come on, man, we all with it. So this is something that men are struggling with, whether they realize it or not. And this is the same place that the enemy continues to fight them in. And the enemy uses women as well to fight men in this space, which is sad, right? Because a house divided against itself cannot stand. And that's really what's happening here, is that the enemy is using the very creation that God put on this planet in order to partner with and empower and love and all the things, is the very thing that the enemy is using to tear down and to isolate, and to negatively confirm these thoughts and feelings that men are already having about themselves. And we gotta do different. But the only way that we can do different is that if we understand how it's supposed to be, understand what is happening, and understand why it's happening, so that we can do something different. That's the whole point here, is that we want to do something different. So what do men do when they are confronted with their shame? What do men do? Men tend to immediately blame, and not just blame randomly. We look at Adam, because again, God said, what you do, man? What happened here? What's going on? And Adam's immediate response was, the woman you gave me ate the fruit and gave it to me. So he immediately blamed her. He immediately was like, not only did he blame her, but he blamed God. It's God, the woman you gave me. So you said she was a blessing, but the woman you gave me did this thing and brought me down. And isn't that what we hear all the time? Men being very distrusting of women. Don't trust them. She gonna take all your stuff. She gonna take your retirement. I'm not marrying her. These women, they out gold diggers. They out to do this and that. The same thing. She's the bane of my existence. It's her fault. I did this thing because you did this thing. Yeah, I know I wasn't faithful, but because you haven't been doing this and you haven't been doing that. No accountability for the fact that, listen, I got all these responsibilities. I'm supposed to cultivate. I'm supposed to tend, to protect, to watch over. Excuse me. I'm supposed to be foundational, hold boundaries, have creative name and authority. I'm supposed to be doing all these things. And I was failing in that, but instead of me being honest about it, I'm gonna blame you and say, well, yeah, I know I failed at what I was supposed to be doing, but I only failed at what I was supposed to be doing because of what you did. We're doing the same. Like this is the exact thing that's happening right now. But God was teaching Adam, and he's teaching men now what to do. Self-reflect. Where are you? Where are you? Where's the man that I created? Where are you in this journey? Where are you in life right now? Where are you mentally and emotionally and physically and spiritually? Like, you need to assess you first. Get you squared. Like, what is going on? And why did this happen? Now that you know where you are and what's going on with you, how did you get here? So that we can figure out, like, now are you open to being it? Like, we can work through this and get this together. But it does not happen through blame. That was the first mistake Adam made. Well, not the first mistake, but you know what I mean. And God wasn't having it anyway. He was not like, yeah, you right, Adam, you right. Listen, because again, God already knew that Eve ate the fruit and gave it to Adam. He knew that. But he still asked Adam, you, because he was also like letting him know this was still your responsibility. This is still your responsibility. Yeah, I know she ate it and I know she gave it to you, but it's still your responsibility because you have the responsibility to cultivate. You have the responsibility to tend, to watch over, to shepherd, to call the shots, to quarterback, to manage. You have the responsibility to protect. You have the responsibility to draw boundaries. You have the responsibility to know the information. I talked to you directly and told you what it was and what it wasn't. You're the foundation. So, and see what happens when you got to carry that responsibility? God come looking at you first. Again, women, we got to rethink some of these things that we saying that we want. We might want to rethink them because it comes with some stuff. It comes with some pressure. It comes with some weight. It's not free. But we also, to that point, and this is going to be the end of the teaching because I am going, bring it all around full circle when I get to the marriage and all that kind of stuff. But I think that this is good to wrap up sort of with men right now. before we get further on, to say this, that we as women, again, we got to respect the hustle. We got to respect what men are going through. We got to respect it. We got to be willing to show respect for it. It's not easy. And here's the thing. This is something that God is really working on me about, is understanding that men are human. Just like me, you, like, men are human. They have fears, they have insecurities. Clearly, just talked about that. They battling with temptation and, stress and being tired. They are under attack constantly by the enemy. They got a lot going on. And yet we as women, then this is a part of sort of this shame. We as women are looking at men as sort of like superheroes. We're looking to them with these expectations that he would never make a mistake, that he's out here with a cape on and he's fighting all the monsters in the dark, and he's protecting us, and he's providing, and he never can feel an emotion, and he can't be sad, and he can't be weak, and he got to be able to beat up every single person that looks at me wrong, and he always got to have all the answers, and he can never have a moment at all. That's so unrealistic and so unfair. And if there's even a kink in his armor, if even one day he shows up looking like he's not entirely sure of himself, man, he comparing himself to the next dude. And you like, what? That's so weak. It's like, oh my God, are you serious right now? This dude don't have a minute to be like vulnerable and human without judgment on his masculinity, on his ability to lead, on his ability to be a father or a husband. Not one moment. We can't show up as women, as wives, as sisters, as mothers, as neighbors. We can't show up like that for the men in our lives. We have to do better. We have to understand and respect the journey, the pressure that they are under, and show up as our best selves in order to empower them to be the best version of themselves. So anyway, I hope that this helped. I hope that this is adding value to you. I hope that you come back next week. Please read your Bible. Don't just take my word for it. Read, study, pray, talk to some people, meditate on it, journal, whatever it is that you got to do to get you some revelation and some understanding. I would love to hear about it. If there's things that you feel like I'm missing, if there's things that you feel like you don't agree with, please, by all means, tell me what it is, what your thoughts are on it. I'd love to hear it, for us to grow together, and to create a community where we are both holding each other accountable. And so have an incredible week. Be blessed. Love you.